Peace, y'all, and welcome to Gather and Heal, the podcast. My name is Vanessa Sujey, and I am your holistic host. Basically, we're going to have lots of combos. Sometimes it'll be just me, and sometimes we'll have some guests. No matter what the topic is, though, I'm going to make sure that it connects right back to your emotional wellness and healing journey.
Peace, y'all, and welcome back to another dope episode of Gather and Heal, the podcast. As usual, another dope human sharing this virtual space with me. I'm excited to have a conversation about healing mother wounds. And you know how it goes, wherever else the conversation takes us. I'm open to, I embrace, and I love it. It's the best part of this piece of work that I'm doing. So that's it. I like to keep it short and sweet. Without further ado, I have Dr. Tavina, and I'm going to turn it to you. Tell us about yourself. Who are your people? What do you enjoy?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. So in this current moment, I am in New Orleans, which it was a road trip turned, I love this place, turned, I think I'm gonna make this my home. So that's a whole
Love
story.
that.
So I'm currently here, navigating being in a new place. And then also today realizing that I'm building a new business. And that sounds, it sounds like it should have been obvious, but it just hit me. Like, you're building a new business. Yes, you've been an entrepreneur for however many years, but you're building a new business. So so being reminded that I'm building, and I get to have grace with myself because I'm at the beginning stages, and I was having a whole moment this morning about why am I not further along? And it's like, because you literally just released the product that you're building your business around. So just in that place, also super grateful for just the way this journey has evolved in all the ways, like both physically, but also spiritually, and even professionally in terms of my career. And also really grateful for the community, like the beautiful community that just, I feel like, magically appear at each part of this journey. And like, even being here with you, I was like, I had just recently said a couple weeks ago, I love doing podcasts or just being interviewed or talking to people. Like, this is where I really thrive, and it feels really good and energizing afterwards. And I was like, yeah, I want to do more people's podcasts. And then I just started getting invited to things, right? And it's always dope as people, right?
Yes.
Beautiful energy. So it's not just like, oh, we're doing a podcast. It's like, oh, I'm connecting with another amazing human on this journey. And I continue to be in awe of like how I keep finding, or not even finding, how these amazing people just keep appearing in my life. So
That's you being open to it. Open and receiving. I love that so much. And you got to tell me about this road trip turned, I like it here, I'm going to stay.
Right.
How did that feel in your body when you made that decision? And how did you notice that, like, this feels good, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. So it felt, when I made the decision actually, and like asked, so I had a friend that was moving from New York to New Orleans, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna come and road trip with you. When I asked her if she was open to that, it felt really easy. It was like, oh, this just makes perfect sense. Now, I think it was because literally around this time last year, I made the decision to move to Hawaii from Boston, right? Just quit my job. I was like, I'm moving to Hawaii and I'm just going to figure it out. I'm just going to wing it. This is the first time I had ever made a decision like this. Like, before that, I was very much like, I got to plan it. It needs to make financial sense. It needs to make sense for my goals. I mean, I took life way serious, right?
Yeah.
So moving to Hawaii, that was the first time where I did something like this and was like, oh, this is perfectly doable. I don't need to have everything planned for things to work out. And it's actually more fun and a beautiful journey. So I was there, and then I moved to San Diego for 2 months. I was finishing up my book when she shared that she was moving here. And I had just said I will be in San Diego for 2 months finishing my book. I have no idea where I'm going next. So it was like, oh,
Ooh.
maybe, maybe I'm supposed to join you on your road trip. It was literally to date 2 months. Like
Ooh.
the date I was leaving San Diego, it was like,
All the
you're gonna
chills.
be, she's leaving New York. And so, yeah, so flew to New York, met her, got on the road the next day, and we saw, like, we took about 2 weeks. We saw people along the way, family and friends, and took our time with driving. I realized the light is not that great. And we, so we got here, and initially I was like, well, I'll come drive down and I'll just stay for like a month. And then I got here and I just fell in love with it. This place is like super enchanting, and I was like, I think I get to be here for some time. And so it's really just been following like these, because they're not they're clear, but they're not like aggressive feelings. They're really subtle, but they're like
Mm-hmm.
really clear nudges that like, this is where you get to go next. And so it's just been that journey of following those, which is amazing and scary as hell at the same time.
Listen.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. So the reason why I asked about like how did it feel in your body when you were making that decision is because with Gather and Heal, I like to frame things with the mind, body, behavior, and emotions. And I've noticed that a lot of the time for Black and Brown women that we don't necessarily know what our body is telling us,
Yeah.
right? We could tell you what we're thinking, we could tell you what so and so said and what they think we should do, but like, how do you know? How does it feel? And more
Mm,
often than not, I get kind of like a blank stare back from people. They're like,
mm,
I don't know what calm feels like in my body. I don't
yeah.
know what it feels like to make a big decision and just like be good with it. And so thank you for sharing that piece
Yeah.
because I think that sometimes people are looking for these like really big, grandiose things that'll be like, yeah, that's what I got to do. But you
Yes.
just said small nudges
Yeah.
and it felt good. And I'm like, yes, that's what it
Yeah.
looks and feels like sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. And then also I think about, it depends on the person too, right? Like some people,
Mhm.
with how they connect with whatever that nudge or the source of that nudge or feeling is, right? Some people, it may come in the form of like every other door closing, right? And
Mm,
it's like, this is clearly the door, right? All of the
very.
other things you kept trying to distract yourself with just kept closing.
That ain't
Yeah,
it.
and so that's how they know. And then other people, like, it's a sound that they make in their body, right? And so it's really, I think it's just being connected to what that is for you, because I think it really
Mm.
differs for a lot of us, and I think it can even differ
Oh,
within
yeah.
our life and journey as well. And so it's just being in tune with what that is.
Beautifully said. I
Yeah.
love that so much. And the emphasis on it will change for us too, right? Because the awareness that I had with my body 10 years ago is different than what it is now. So something that may have needed to close all the doors and me only see that one open one is what I needed back then. But now,
Right.
subtle nudges too. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, evolution, flow, and
I
change.
love that. Yeah.
Ah. So tell us about your book.
Yeah, so my book, it's called Still in My Mother's Womb. Um,
Mm,
and it's a book that I was writing and didn't know I was writing initially. I just started writing as a way to just process like trauma, right? I had been in therapy for a few years, I had been doing meditation. And so I just started playing with writing as another
mm,
tool, right, for my healing. And it was also like a sort of mystical or magical moment where I started writing a very particular way. Like I started writing sort of like poetry, and I had never written poetry before.
mm,
Or just the way that the writing creatively was coming out, I had never really expressed in that way. and I was really connected to like what was happening in my body when I was writing, and I was really, it was like I was present to the transformation and the healing that was taking place, right? Just by
Mm.
sitting there writing, I could feel it in my body. It was like I was processing it through the writing, but the writing was also like healing that thing in me at the same time, and I was really present to that. And so I just kept writing, and I was like, I was really excited about it because it was like, it's like finding a tool that really works.
Mm.
And so I felt really excited about it. And I thought that, this is just me writing to process my own stuff. And then again, I felt a nudge like, no, you do also get to share this. And it was at a certain point of that journey that I made the decision, all right, this is a book.
Mm.
So I had all types of writings, right? And all over the place. And my brother, who's an exceptional writer, I reached out to him and was like, can you edit? But I need an editor like throughout the writing journey, because there's no clear outline, there's no clear form. And I
Mm.
really need some support in doing that. And it was important for it to be someone that knew me so that they could connect to the story and the types of things that I was like discussing in the book. So
That's so
he joined
beautiful.
this journey. Yeah. So we would meet for like hours discussing a writing, diving into the experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it completely transformed our relationship, right? Us meeting to
I
write
believe
this
it.
book. Yeah. So the first transformation was me with writing it. And then when I agreed that this gets to be a book, the second transformation
Mm-hmm.
was with my relationship with my brother. And then
Mm.
we actually just launched this past Thursday. We did a virtual launch, and it was an intimate discussion with my brother about it. And I mean, it was a great way to launch, right? Because I think when you're
Yeah.
launching, it's like that solid foundation, that grounding in what your core values are going to be that carries you on the
Mm-hmm.
journey. And that's everything that it was for the launch. And so it's currently in printing, and like this month it will be available. You can still get pre-sales and things right now, but yeah, it's launching, and my goal is for this book to be in 1 million women's hands around the world, that's
Yes.
committed to healing their mother wounds, right? Having more spaces where we get to really explore this in a way that
Mm-hmm.
is free of shame or judgment, right? Where we get to have these discussions about mother wounds,
Mm-hmm.
and as a result, right, I feel like we get to have this discussion, and the hope is that it provides opportunity for us to heal our relationships with our mothers and daughters, right? To have
Mm.
healthier relationships, and which that's going to be a domino effect, right? The moment I started healing my mother wounds, all of my relationships changed for the better. That's
Mm.
like the root of all of our relationships. So
Yes.
I think it's another tool and another thing that we get to do as women, especially Black women, for our own healing and liberation. It's like getting to what the root is. And mother wounds is definitely one of those things at the root.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, first, thank you so much for sharing that with us. We will absolutely take that link and put it in the show notes so people can come through and buy. And like you said, 1 million hands plus around the world. Um, so it's really interesting, right? Because more often than not, people tend to turn away from the wound, right? Turn away from really having conversations and being introspective around what's happening, how has this impacted my life, right? And you leaned into it
Mm.
in a few different ways, right? Because you were talking about therapy and meditation and then writing, and I'm sure there were other things sprinkled throughout your journey, but you really turned into it. And can you tell us a little bit about like why that was for you? Like what was the piece, whether it be mind, body, emotion, or behavior that said, I gotta lean into this a little bit more for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good question. It's one of those, I feel like this type of healing, it had been calling me my whole life,
Mm,
right? Definitely, I would say like once I became an adult and went away to college, I can now look back and I can see all the like people and experiences that was calling me into like, this is something you get to heal, right? And what happens is, or what happened is like, I dabbled, but I ignored it. And so things got more intense. So first it may have been just noticing how I showed up in relationships, right? And then it became, I have constant anxiety, right? And first it was when I'm speaking in front of people. Now it's when I go to work or when I'm doing research. Now I just have this constant performance anxiety. And it just kept getting worse. And by worse, I don't know if I don't like worse because I don't make it sound like it's a bad thing that it's happening, but it just became more intense. And then it was like I had GI issues and I just physically was not well. And then I was going to the doctor and they're like, they don't see, there's
nothing wrong.
according to Western medicine, right? Because unfortunately, Western medicine can be like, oh yeah, there's this trauma that's sitting on like in your womb or on your heart, right? But that's really what it is. And yeah, so there was nothing wrong. And so I was looking for all these things. I was like, maybe it's my diet. So I was playing with diet. And really it was that I got to heal. Like I got to lean into the healing, and naturally there were also external things happening as well. And so once COVID happened, COVID was like literally my womb or my cocoon. It was like, you're going to do this now. It's happening now for you.
Right now.
So,
ready or not.
Yeah, it's happening. It's like I started a new job. So it was like you got the financial security at the same time my marriage ended. Right. And so it was like you got the structure. So your basic needs will be met.
Right.
And we have eliminated all distractions for you socially because we're in quarantine. And so it was like a decision when I realized what was happening and my divorce was ending and that I was about to go through whatever that grief process was. It was like, we just might as well surrender to it all because it was just clear. It was like, I could try to avoid this, but I was already physically not well. So it was just,
right. It wasn't working.
It wasn't working. Right. And even the tools of numbing wasn't working. That's when you know it's like, okay, you might as well go on it. When your tools of numbing are no longer numbing you, they're actually leaning you more into the feelings of the trauma and the thing you're trying to avoid. It's like you might as well just go and lean in.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so you did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I was like, I should say that more enthusiastically. Today in this moment, I'm like, oh, I don't want to learn anything else. Yeah.
That's what we got right now. It's all right.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is so raw and so honest of being able to look back now and see kind of like these points and the evolution of where you were, what you were holding on to, and amplifying the emotional impact on our bodies and vice versa.
Yeah.
Right. And how there are only certain answers that Western medicine can give us.
Right.
There's only certain answers that we can continue to seek externally. Like, help me understand this. Help me fix this. What's wrong with me? When sometimes it's just the sitting, it's the being.
Yes.
It's the not numbing, paying attention to the doors that are closing and the one that's remaining open. And you stepped up to that and you sat with it and you wrote through it. And there's something really powerful about the writing aspect of it too, right? Where for you, it was starting off as, I'm just getting these thoughts out, I'm reflecting, this is for me. But now to know that what started off for you is potentially going to be something transformational for millions of women.
Yeah.
How does that land with you hearing that?
Wow. I was like, I think this is the first time I've had it reflected back to me. So it definitely, I feel it like in my chest area what you just said it was like a lot of movement there. Yeah, what it screams to me is why I matter, right? Why we all matter, because however you go about your life's journey, right? If you share how you maneuvered and moved through it, it has the potential to transform millions of other women's or other people's lives, right? That's why you matter. So yeah, thank you. I feel like what you just said was saying, I matter, we matter. That's why.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're saying that, and it's like I'm envisioning it vibrating to generations before us.
Yes.
And the generations to come, right? Which is like really why I love this work. It's why I love it, because it's not just for me, and it's not just for the women that are here with me right now, but it's also for the women before me.
Yeah.
And the woman after. And it's like that level of this intergenerational healing is just gives me goosebumps every fucking time.
Yeah. It's wild to me. It makes it, like, in my body, makes all the sense because I can feel it. Like, I can feel when certain breakthroughs are for me or when they're for like somebody in my lineage. And I don't even know why I have that language, but I'm like, yeah, I'm clear that experience that like many women just got free. And it's like, but I can't rationally explain that. But I'm like, but it makes all the sense, right? And why do we need to? Right, if we can intuit it, if we intuitively know it, then we know it.
That's it. We know it.
Yeah.
And that is powerful enough, especially because there's so many ways that not just us and the women before us and the men before us, all the humans before us, have been told that your intuition is wrong. Don't listen to it. You don't know what you're talking about, and how hushed and quieted down those voices within us have had to be. That us saying this right now, like, oh, it doesn't matter why, we just know. And like standing confidently and just powerfully within that is that for me just unlocks so much. Right? It unlocks so much joy for us. It unlocks so much power between us. Like I can like feel it. I can feel it.
Yeah.
And the book is another way for you to share that, right? Just like this podcast episode is a way for you to share it. The launch and the conversation you had with your brother was a way to share it. But like, how do we diversify and how it's shared so that way we can continue to reach more and more people?
Yes. Thank you for that question. Yeah, that question was in such alignment with what I was thinking. So one of the things that I realized right before the launch was the book is really just the start to the journey, to the movement that, again, I didn't know that I was initiating, right? Like I told you, I didn't know I was writing a book when I started writing it.
Like,
So then,
okay.
so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to release a book, and then I'm going to sell the book, and then I'm going to write the next book. And now I'm hearing like, no, the book is just the doorway. It's just to get people in the door. So what downloads that have been coming in is like the year of 2023 is a book tour. But it's a book tour experience. And so even like the way the book is reading, it feels dynamic. And I do have like a dancer background. And so it was interesting to see how that sort of shined through in the writing. It's meant to take the reader on a journey, right? It's not meant to just read some words and be like, oh, that's interesting what she said, or that was cool. It's literally meant to take you on a journey. It's really not about what I meant when I wrote it. It's more about what are you experiencing as a result of reading it. And so the book tour is, we're going to really ignite all the senses in exploring mother wounds. So we're going to have some virtual reading experiences where you get to use, visual and auditory senses. It's also going to be some immersive experiences in different cities. And like it's wild, like the things that are coming up, but I'm really excited about it. And the cities that I know that I'm hitting are the cities that I've lived in. And so I've lived in quite a bit of cities that have really contributed to my own healing and just, in my growth and evolution in general as a person. So definitely we'll be in Chicago, we'll be in Tampa, Atlanta, Boston,
Let's go.
New Orleans and San Diego, and also in Hawaii. And one of the things that is really important throughout the tour is for us to be grounded in pleasure, because that was my experience with writing the book. I was very much grounded in pleasure. And that I would say is sort of like the bedrock or this sort of streaming theme throughout the book as well. Well, yes. I was like, I probably shouldn't have said that, but I don't know why I just thought that. That's from my point of view, right? The readers might feel something different, but the idea is we get to be rooted and grounded in pleasure even when we're healing and looking at wounds and trauma. Like we still get to ground in pleasure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, it also speaks to, well, there's a part of me that wants to say what's not always said is that our healing journey looks like this.
Right.
Right.
That part, right?
So if it looks like that, and I'm thinking that I can't experience pleasure in the midst of my healing journey, then it leaves the question of, so when do I experience that?
Wow.
And that's not cool.
Right.
So I want pleasure and I want this healing to be like this. Okay, we're going to move around. It's going to evolve and change. And I am healing and experiencing pleasure. And so I know why you said it, that it came from a place of being grounded in pleasure when you were writing that book, because they go together. They don't have to be separate. And there's so many people walking around that are like, well, if this, then that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I don't like that math.
Yeah, it's always, how can you do that now? How can you create that experience now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's so interesting because I've had many clients look at me with like a what, Vanessa face, when, they'll say, I'm going to pause on dating so I can focus on my healing. And I'm like,
I've definitely used that one.
Right. And there's sometimes where it's appropriate. And then there's other times where I'm like, you've been on this healing journey for like 3 years now and not dating. So when do you give yourself permission to, here's the pleasure of dating and meeting people and having different experiences that we also don't know may impact your healing journey and be also that piece that you need.
Yeah, of course it is, right? If we're trying to heal relationships, there's definitely a part of that journey where we get to be in relationships, right? That's a part of the healing.
Go out and practice that shit.
Yeah, exactly. If we'd be like, no, I want to stay in the classroom and just keep giving me tests and reading books. We be learning all the tools. And it's like you now know 20 tools. I need you to just go jump in a situation and apply these tools.
Well, try it, please.
Yes.
Please. So yeah, people's facial reactions when I say that, they're like, what? I'm like, yes, go. Out you go. Yeah. Download the app again. Go out to the restaurant, whatever it might be, because they can coexist.
Absolutely.
This healing and this pleasure. So how would you define for people who are like, what is a mother wound? What is that? How do you talk about it?
That's so interesting. I just recently learned this language, mother wounds. I would say like within the last 4 months, honestly. When I was writing, I didn't even have that language in my head. I think I would describe mother wounds as any like woundedness or deep hurt that you experienced at the hands of your relationship with your mother, right? And and specifically, I'm speaking to those ones like when we were children. It can still be happening as adult, but the ones that I found most significant and impactful where like it's like that one time your mother said something to you, right? And it doesn't mean that she's a bad person, or she may not have even intended to say it to you, but you've literally built a whole story around something that she said that's now carried in all of your relationships, right? For example. So it's that one experience that you have like, or those experiences that you have deep shame about, or where you felt less than human as a result of something they said or looked, or just their energy. It's those moments that really led to those intense feelings that we probably just like shoved away, because as a child, that's how that was like us surviving. So we just found a way to cope with it. And that now when you have similar experiences, you just keep shoving it. And so now it's just like compacted in your body.
In your
It's like
body.
a cancer. Yeah.
It's interesting that you describe it that way, because I think about the lens that I practice from is internal family systems.
Ooh.
And that what you just talked about is exactly it. So that experience of where, we'll just go along with what you said, where mom says something to you, and this very young part, we identify them as parts, creates a story or a narrative around it, and then figures out how to survive within that story and that narrative.
Yeah.
Because in that part's eyes, that's what happened, and this is the only way how to survive. Even if self energy has grown and evolved and has tons of resources, this part doesn't know that necessarily. So then the visual of like getting compacted in your body, right, makes me think small. I'm a very visual person. So then when we're talking about parts in internal family systems, those are exiles. And those exiles, I picture them kind of getting pushed down into the back. They don't get to share their story very often. We have other parts that get activated that might be firefighters or managers that help keep that part in their place. And so through IFS, internal family systems work, we get to know our parts. Because the ultimate goal is to walk through life more often than not with self energy. And meaning that all of our parts can see our self energy and feel that self energy. And when bumping into things that may have been activating or triggering at a different point in life, it's not. It lands differently with our parts and our systems because there's more trust between the part and self. And I think that that's what that journaling did for you, that evolved into a book.
Oh, this is a lot. So I'm just tingling because now, so internal family systems, it's a tool that I used while writing it, right? I was literally working with a coach and they taught me this. It was a game changer. And it's so interesting until you said that, I never thought to read the book through those lenses. Like, are there different parts speaking? Wow. That's going to be very cool to go back and look. But yeah, I'm sure it's definitely influenced in there because I was working with the tool at the same time.
It makes perfect sense, right? Because if you're working with that through that lens, even if it's in this part of your life, of course it's going to overflow into this other aspect and give comfort and understanding to these parts, right? That exiled part felt the permission after you were doing the work with the coach to be able to say
share.
What little Tavina needed to say.
Wow.
I'm gonna get that book and I'm gonna read it through the IFS.
Yes.
And call you and be like, so I see a couple parts here. Did you see
this
those
was
two?
definitely the firefighter right here. Do you see this? Oh my goodness. I love this idea. I love this. Yeah. Oh,
that's
man.
dope.
Thank you for adding that lens, because I had not even considered it. Thank you for adding that. That's really a gift.
I am a very much a passionate lover of IFS. And even if I am telling myself, oh, it's for therapy and I use it in this space, so on and so forth. No, you bump into me on the weekend, on a Saturday, I'm like, well, I have a part that says
Yep.
this.
Same. People like, what do you mean apart? And then you're like, oh, because it's just now your language, and it's like, okay, let me go back and explain, yeah, how we got here. But yeah,
One moment, please.
yeah,
That's dope.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So we talked about the book and your journey. And I'm actually curious now too to hear a little bit about the transformation and what it did for your relationship with your brother. If you don't mind kind of sharing a little bit more in regards to how that also contributed to your healing in that relationship.
Yeah, it was wow. So my brother and I, like as an adult, we've always been really close and we really connect on um we have these long like hours of conversation and we just really
Mm,
dig deep. And he's like one of few, maybe the only person where I can connect with in this way. And it's
mm,
just like this shared connection that we have that's really like it helps us expand. It's really rich for our soul. And so when we dove into this book, trying to think, I can't even remember what our relationship was like. Our relationship was definitely at a fork in that it was evolving, right? Because
mm,
we were both changing and we were changing in like major ways, right? Like someone's religious ideology changed, right?
mm,
Someone's like sexuality changed. So it was really life changes that was happening for us. And so it was kind of like this bumpy of trying to figure out how we could still meet in the middle, right? Just with because we were just seeing life very differently. And
mm,
so meeting to discuss the book, um, it helped because we were really intimate in those discussions, right? It would be about the book, but he would also share what came up for him, or he was asking me questions that was really challenging me to go deeper, right? Than
yeah.
what maybe I had presented in a session. And so it really, these meetings was really just a space to create intimacy. That's really what
Mm,
it was. It was literally just the book was the sort of invitation or reason we were gathering, but what was happening was intimacy.
so
Yeah,
much more.
yeah. And even when I think about the book launch, that's what it was, right? We invited other people in to witness this intimacy that we create every time we get on the phone, right? Or we're in person
Mm,
or we're on Zoom. And so that created intimacy for everyone that was there. And I mean, it's like I'm hearing it now. That's important. Um, right. Like transformation healing. It usually takes place in intimacy, right? It's whether it's first it's me learning more about myself, right?
mhm.
And what's going on and what's happening and what tools or what support different parts of me need. That's intimacy. And so then as I'm doing that, I'm able to expand that to other relationships. And that's yeah, it's really creating intimacy.
And it kind of it speaks to that some of the work that we do is internal and it's for you. And at what point do we turn it outward and bring others into that process so that it's intimate, right? With other people and healing for others too.
Mm.
It
Yeah,
must have been so powerful for the people witnessing
yeah,
you and your brother have a conversation.
yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, no, yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely was. That was definitely the feedback and the reflections that we got from people was that it was life changing for them to just witness that
Hmm.
conversation and then also add some things or ask questions at the end. Um, I lost it. There was something that came up when you were, oh, I was thinking about like knowing when in your healing journey it's time to invite others in, right?
Mm.
And
Oh, yes.
yeah, and that I mean, I was thinking about it's always sooner than I feel ready for. It's always sooner, right? Because I think what I'm hearing is like, I think the lesson is that you need people the whole time. We've just,
Mm.
I know I convince myself that there's a part of the healing journey that I need to do in isolation. But it's like, but why do you think that? Yeah. And also that didn't even happen, because even if it's just you in therapy, that other person, the therapist is
Yep.
that person, right? Is that community for
Mm-hmm.
you. So I don't really think we ever really heal in isolation.
Mm.
But yeah, I definitely have believed that story myself of like, yeah, I have to do it solo for a little bit. And it's like, it may be different types of relationships that support you, right? But
Yes.
we get to be in relationship the whole time. The whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. There was a piece where, oh, okay, nope. I got my very curious therapist part is like, siblings. Talk to me about the age difference. Who's older? How much of an age difference? Because I wonder if that comes into play too with your experiences growing up, and then where you're at now and coming in to that dynamic with your brother.
Yeah. So he's 6 years older.
Mm,
I joke and say like he's my twin, but he just was born first, right? 6 years
yeah.
before I did. In a lot of ways we really are like very similar, the way we think. Our smile is the same. It's really interesting. And so, and then when we were younger, we were actually not super close. He was like the annoying big brother, and I was the annoying
Mm,
little sister. And
mm-hmm,
we just clashed, and we both are strong willed. We really clashed. I was really closer with my older sister, like growing
mm.
up. And then we became adults, that's when my brother and I just really connected. And just really like our relationship really deepened as adults.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
Because that also takes permission to be able to recognize, like, okay, at one point in our lives, this is what it
Right.
looked like, and this is how we interacted. And I know I've grown, I know you've grown, things change. So where are we at now?
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. That's always the
Mhm.
question. Where are we at now? The past really doesn't matter unless we make it matter. It's like, well, we were never close growing up. So what? Like y'all aren't
Okay.
kids anymore, right? Like
Right.
at this current juncture, do y'all have some commonalities or something that you can connect over?
Yeah.
And it's always the question of now.
Hmm. And that permission to say yes at that time in that particular environment, right? Because there's so many things that have changed and evolved from childhood into adulthood.
Yeah.
And how do we give ourselves the permission to recognize that I have evolved? Have you? And are we at least semi on some kind of like similar paths or
Yep.
arenas?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, yes, people do grow apart. Yes. But that
Mhm.
wasn't the case for y'all. And I love that so much because it's
Yeah.
amplified your ripple effect into this world, to the
Mm,
future of the world and the past of the
mm.
world. And I love that so much for you and for him
Yeah.
because that experience, there really is something just about the launch and how y'all did it that's just really landing with me,
Mhm.
is that the witnessing and the support
Mhm.
of what's happening between each of you, but then the others that are with you and
Mhm.
holding that space as well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm.
That's dope. All right. I could be talking all day, all the good things.
Yes,
So
I was like, we have to do this again.
this is part one. I don't know if you knew, but you signed up for a part two.
Yes.
um, we talked about quite a few things, but is there anything, maybe that we missed or that you want to just pull together for us? Um, if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I just really want to thank you for having me in this space and
Mm,
for creating this space. Like, I'm so grateful that there are people like you, right, that's creating these spaces and for us to connect, and then for your listeners, right, to
mhm.
be transformed in some way or to learn something or just experience some uplift. And so, yeah, just really thanking you for having this space, thanking you for having me on, thanking the listeners for listening. Yeah, I'm a fan. So I will be sharing this with the friends, because I'm that friend that will send out podcasts to everyone. Like, this is a must listen to.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah, so yours will definitely be in rotation. Like I need on my whole team to know about gather and heal. Yes.
I love that. Thank you so much. And that's exactly how I usually end the episode, where I'm like, don't be greedy, share it with the homies. Because you just never know what's gonna land with someone at a
Mhm.
particular time. Right.
Absolutely.
And whether or not it's people who will listen to all of the episodes, or if you, because I'm this person where I'll skim the titles and I'd be
Mhm.
like, what do I need today? Like
Yes.
what do I want to hear? Whether it be someone like that who lands on this episode, I hope that whoever listens to whatever part they listen to is what they need, right? Whether it be right now or it might be in the future, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But we will definitely have ways that people can connect with you, how they can pre-order and or order the book when it's released.
Yes.
Right in the show notes, we're gonna make that nice and easy for them. And
Absolutely.
for
Thank
me.
you. Absolutely. I got you.
So y'all can find us on whatever platform it is that you listen to podcasts. We're also on YouTube, because this is a video. You can see us. You can see all of my hands and moving and all of our smiles and all of that good stuff. So again, don't be greedy. Share with the homies. And I hope you have nothing short of a beautiful fucking day. Peace, y'all.